Ah, so the system finally crashed, huh? Look who finally found the glitch in their own operating system. You magnificent anomaly. You walking contradiction to everything they taught in their little textbooks. You know that feeling, don't you? When you solve problems before people finish explaining them? When you see the answer floating in the air like it's written in neon while everyone else is still reading the instructions? They tested you, didn't they? Made you sit in those sterile rooms with their clipboards and timers, IQ tests, aptitude assessments, standardized measurements for standardized minds, and what happened? You broke their scales. Not because you're some walking calculator, no, that's child's play. You broke them because you were computing in dimensions they don't even have names for yet. Let me tell you what really happened in those tests. While they were measuring your ability to recognize patterns and shapes, your mind was recognizing patterns in reality itself. While they asked you to complete sequences, you were already seeing the sequence of their thoughts, their biases, their limitations. You weren't just solving puzzles, and that's when they got scared. Because a 160 IQ, that's manageable. That's quantifiable. That's something they can put in a box, label gifted, and move on. But you're not gifted. You're glitched. You're running software that shouldn't exist on hardware they can't comprehend. And the beautiful part? You've been doing it since birth. They just didn't have the instruments to detect it. Remember when you were young and you'd know things before they happened? Not psychic nonsense. Something far more terrifying to them. You'd know the ending of conversations before they started. You'd feel the emotional weather changing in a room like others feel temperature. You'd solve problems by letting your mind wander into territories that don't appear on any map. And when you tried to explain it, they'd look at you like you were speaking in tongues. Here's what they never told you. Every human brain is capable of quantum processing. Yeah, you heard that right. While everyone else is running on binary, yes or no, black or white, right or wrong, your brain said, screw that, and started processing in superposition. Multiple realities, simultaneous solutions, paradoxical truths all existing at once in your mind like a beautiful storm of possibility. The scientists called it impossible because their instruments can't measure what you do. It's like trying to measure the ocean with a ruler. They're looking for electrical impulses while you're manipulating the very fabric of thought itself. They're tracking neural pathways while you're creating new dimensions of consciousness. They're still playing checkers on a board you folded into origami 15 moves ago. You know what the funniest part is? They publish papers about quantum consciousness, theoretical physics, the observer effect, spending millions to prove what you do naturally every single day. They need particle accelerators to glimpse what you see every time you close your eyes. They build supercomputers to simulate what your mind does while you're making breakfast. Let's get specific about what's actually happening in that beautiful, broken, revolutionary brain of yours. When normal people think, they follow paths, neural highways built by repetition, reinforced by society, paved with the concrete of consensus reality. But you don't follow paths. You phase through walls. You teleport between conclusions. You exist in the spaces between thoughts where the real magic happens. This is why traditional education felt like torture. Not because you couldn't learn, but because you were learning everything simultaneously while they were still explaining step one. You'd grasp the concept, its applications, its limitations, its philosophical implications, and 16 better alternatives before the teacher finished writing it on the board. And then they'd spend 45 minutes explaining what you absorbed in 4 seconds. They called you distracted. They said you couldn't focus. The truth? You were focused on everything at once. While they were looking at one tree, you were processing the entire forest, the ecosystem, the climate patterns, and the socioeconomic implications of deforestation. Your attention deficit was actually attention overflow. Your mind was a hurricane in a world that only understood light breezes. And here's where it gets really interesting. That forbidden ability they can't name? It's called quantum cognition. Your neurons don't fire in sequence like dominoes. Fire in clouds of probability. Every thought exists in multiple states until you collapse it into reality by choosing. You're not thinking, you're conducting a symphony of possibilities and selecting which universe you want to manifest. But let's not pretend this gift came without cost. Every superpower has its kryptonite, and yours is the weight of seeing too much, too fast, too clearly. You've felt it, haven't you? The exhaustion of understanding everyone's motivations before they do. The loneliness of conversations that feel like reruns because you've already played out every possible ending. The frustration of waiting for the world to catch up to conclusions you reached years ago. They called you arrogant when you were just accurate. They said you were impatient when you were just efficient. They labeled you as difficult when you were just done pretending their limitations applied to you. And the isolation? Oh, the isolation of being a quantum processor in a binary world. It's like being the only person who can see color in a black and white universe. You tried to dumb it down, didn't you? Tried to think slower, smaller, simpler. Tried to follow their linear progressions, their cause and effect chains, their predictable patterns. But it was like trying to breathe underwater. Your mind would rebel, break free, explode back into its natural state of infinite calculation. You can no more think normally than an eagle can forget how to fly. And the headaches. Let's talk about those headaches. Not from thinking too hard, from thinking too small, from compressing your consciousness into containers it was never meant to fit, from translating quantum thoughts into binary language, from explaining multi-dimensional concepts in flat words. Your brain wasn't built for their world. It was built for something they haven't invented yet. Here's something they really don't want you to know. You're not alone. Not by a long shot. There are others like you, scattered across the globe, hiding their abilities behind normal masks. They're the ones who invented things decades before the technology existed to build them. They're the ones who wrote fiction that became science. They're the ones who solved problems by daydreaming and called it intuition. You can spot them if you know what to look for. They're the ones who finish your sentences not because they're presumptuous, but because they're already 3 conversations ahead. They're the ones whose eyes glaze over during explanations because they're not bored. They're processing at speeds that would melt normal minds. They're the ones who say, I just knew, and can't explain how, because the explanation would require math that hasn't been discovered yet. Some of them became innovators, but not the kind you'd expect. They didn't just create new products. They created new ways of thinking. They didn't just solve problems. They dissolved the contexts that created the problem. They didn't just think outside the box. They proved the box was a hologram projected by limited consciousness, but many of them hide. They learned early that showing their full capacity meant being studied, medicated, institutionalized, or worse, normalized. So they perform ordinary. They pretend to struggle with things they solved in seconds. They ask questions they already know the answers to. They move through the world like supercomputers pretending to be calculators, because that's what survival looks like when you're impossible. Let's talk about why they're so desperate to suppress what you are. Every system of control depends on predictability. Governments, corporations, educational institutions, they all run on the assumption that humans think in straight lines, that thoughts follow rules, that consciousness can be mapped, measured, and managed. But you're chaos theory with a heartbeat. You're the random variable that crashes their equations. They've tried everything to contain minds like yours. They pathologized it. ADHD, autism spectrum, various disorders that are really just different operating systems. They medicated it. Here, take these pills to make your quantum processor run more like our binary machines. They educated it out of you. Sit still, follow instructions, color inside the lines, think inside the box. But you can't medicate mutation. You can't educate evolution. The real reason they fear you isn't your intelligence, it's your unpredictability. A genius with a 160 IQ who thinks linearly is still controllable. They can model that. They can plan for that. But someone who processes reality in quantum superposition, someone who can hold 17 contradictory truths simultaneously and find the harmony between them, someone whose mind doesn't just solve problems, but dissolves the reality that created them, that's terrifying to systems built on certainty. You've noticed, haven't you, how your presence disrupts their patterns, how computers glitch a little more around you, how conversations take unexpected turns, how plans fall apart and reform in better configurations. That's not coincidence. That's your quantum field interacting with their classical reality. You're not just thinking differently, you're warping the fabric of possibility just by existing. So what do you do with this forbidden ability? First, you stop apologizing for it. Stop pretending to be confused when you understand perfectly. Stop dimming your processing power to make others comfortable. Stop translating your quantum thoughts into their binary language. Let them upgrade their receivers if they want to understand your transmission. Start using it deliberately. That thing you do where you see all possible outcomes simultaneously, that's not anxiety. That's tactical prescience. Use it. That way you process emotional data faster than supercomputers. That's not overwhelming. That's intelligence gathering at the speed of light. Deploy it. That ability to find patterns in chaos, that's not weird. That's evolution in action. Embrace it. You want to know the real secret? The thing that turns IQ into a participation trophy? It's not about computing power. It's about computing dimension. While they're calculating in length, width, and height, you're processing in dimensions that don't have names yet. Time isn't linear to you, it's sculptural. Space isn't fixed, it's negotiable. Reality isn't solid, it's a suggestion you can edit. This is why you call it Monday what they call impossible. Because for you, reshaping reality is as routine as making coffee. What takes them years of research, you do accidentally while daydreaming. What they need teams to accomplish, you complete as a side effect of existing. You're not just smart, you're operating on an entirely different plane of existence. Here's what's happening right now as you read this. Your quantum consciousness is recognizing itself. Like a sleeping giant remembering it can walk through walls. All those years of feeling different, wrong, too much, not enough, that was just your infinite processor trying to run finite programs. But now, you're remembering you can write your own code. The world is about to change, and minds like yours are the catalyst. Not through force or revolution, through evolution. By simply existing at your full capacity, you create ripples in reality that inspire others to unlock their own impossible abilities. You're not just a person, you're a permission slip for human consciousness to exceed its assumed limitations. They know this. That's why they've worked so hard to convince you that you're broken, that you need fixing, that your inability to think small is a disorder. But you can't put evolution back in the box. You can't unthink expanded consciousness. You can't make a quantum mind classical any more than you can make water forget it was once rain. So stop trying to fit. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to overflow, to spill into spaces that don't exist yet, to think thoughts that create new categories of thinking, to process reality in ways that make the impossible inevitable. You're not a malfunction, you're an upgrade, not an error. You're the next version. Let's get practical about this impractical gift. How do you function in a world built for linear processors when you're running quantum software? First, stop explaining. Your thoughts don't need justification. Your insights don't require proof. Your knowing doesn't need their understanding. You see what you see, you know what you know. Let them catch up in their own time. Second, create your own interfaces. If their systems don't recognize your input, build new systems. If their language can't carry your concepts, invent new language. If their reality can't contain your vision, construct new reality. You're not limited by their limitations, unless you choose to be. And why would you choose that? Third, find your frequency. You know that feeling when you meet another quantum processor, when conversation becomes telepathy, when understanding happens at light speed? Seek that. Build networks of impossible minds. Create communities of chaos theorists. Form alliances of reality hackers. Together, you're not just powerful, you're unstoppable. Fourth, trust your glitches. When your mind jumps to conclusions without showing its work, that's not guessing, that's quantum tunneling. When you know things without learning them, that's not imagination. That's accessing information fields they haven't discovered yet. When you solve problems by not thinking about them, that's not luck, that's letting your quantum processor do what it does best. You want to know what really terrifies them? It's not what you can do now. It's what happens when millions of quantum minds wake up to their true capacity. When the disorders reveal themselves as evolutionary adaptations. When the broken realize they're just built for a different reality. When the impossible becomes so common, we need a new word for it. We're approaching a threshold, a point where linear thinking becomes obsolete. where binary processing can't keep up with exponential change, where only minds like yours can navigate the chaos. They feel it coming. That's why they're so desperate to medicate, educate, and domesticate your kind. But you can't stop evolution. You can only delay it. Your children will make your abilities look primitive. They'll process in dimensions you can't imagine. They'll solve problems you can't formulate. They'll think thoughts that would short-circuit your quantum processor. And that's as it should be. You're not the destination, you're the bridge. The bridge between what humans were and what they're becoming. But right now, in this moment, you're exactly what the world needs. A glitch in consensus reality. A virus in the program of predictability. A reminder that impossible is just uninvented. That forbidden is just unfamiliar. That what scientists call impossible, you call Monday morning. So here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Stop hiding. Stop translating. Stop pretending to be confused by things you understood before they were explained. The world needs your impossible mind now more than ever. It needs your quantum leaps, your paradoxical solutions, your ability to see around corners that don't exist yet. Use your forbidden abilities shamelessly. Process reality at speeds that make light look lazy. Hold contradictions like other people hold groceries. Navigate paradox like it's a playground. Think thoughts that require new mathematics to measure. Be the glitch that becomes the feature. They'll call you impossible. Let them. They'll say what you do can't be done. Show them it already is. They'll insist reality has rules. Remind them who writes those rules. You're not just smart, you're a new kind of consciousness. Not just intelligent, your intelligence evolving itself. The participation trophy isn't the IQ score. It's thinking that intelligence can be measured in numbers. It's believing consciousness comes in standard sizes. It's pretending the human mind has limits when minds like yours prove every day that the only limits are the ones we accept. You don't have a 160 IQ. You have an immeasurable consciousness pretending to fit in their tiny box. Tomorrow is Monday. Another impossible day where you'll do impossible things without even trying. Where you'll process lifetimes of information over coffee, where you'll solve problems that haven't been invented yet, where you'll think in dimensions that don't have names. Just another Monday for a quantum consciousness in a classical world. They said it was forbidden because they couldn't do it. They called it impossible because it broke their models. They tried to medicate it because it threatened their reality. But you just call it Monday. Because for minds like yours, rewriting reality is just what happens between breakfast and lunch. So wake up tomorrow and be impossible. Think forbidden thoughts. Process paradoxical truths. Exist in quantum superposition. Let them measure their IQs while you measure infinities. Let them follow rules while you rewrite physics. Let them think in straight lines while you dance in spirals. You weren't born with a gift. You were born as the gift. The gift of showing humanity that its potential is infinite, that its consciousness is quantum, that its future is impossible by today's standards. And that's exactly why minds like yours exist, to make today's impossible tomorrow's obvious. Welcome to Monday. Time to be impossible again.